We have a tradition here at Holmes Park, which was established upon our opening, August 2010. That tradition was to always honor our nation's veterans and active duty servicemen and women with a program on Veterans Day. This included recognizing the veterans who have an Holmes Park Elementary connection to our students and staff by showcasing their photos on our Husky Wall of Heroes. 4 years ago, this project evolved when we asked all veterans in attendance to sign our written program, which we framed and displayed as a memento of those who have served us so proudly. In addition, we begin to spotlight some of these veterans by presenting their stories and inducting them into our select Husky Wall of Heroes with a commemorative plaque and reverent recognition. This year, we would like to recognize and induct 4 more veterans to the HPE Wall of Heroes. Jess Linton Barker, our first honoree, is Mr. Jess Linton Barker. He was received this award posthumously and is represented by his loving family. Jess was born on May 3rd, 1924 in Indiana. In September 1942, at the age of 18, Jess enlisted in the air crew at Lafayette, Indiana. By January of 1943, he was inducted in his service at Fort Hays, located in Columbus, Ohio. From there, he was sent to Camp Keesler in Biloxi, Mississippi, and was later stationed at Birmingham Southern College in Birmingham, Alabama. Jess was a member of the Air Crew F-1B, serving in the Army Air Forces, and it was called then, providing a young man from Indiana many rich travel experiences and valuable life lessons. Jess was a second lieutenant who trained other pilots during the Korean conflict. As a civilian, Jess owned Tahlequah Flying Services, where he worked as a flight instructor in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. In addition, he gave flight tours over Tahlequah, Fort Gibson Dam, and Tenkiller Dam. He attended Northeastern State University, graduating with a bachelor's degree in education. Upon graduation, Jess taught mathematics at Bagley Junior High. Jess married Jens Marie Barker and became the proud father of 2 sons, James Linton and Jess Allen Barker. In addition to his teaching job, Jess worked as a crop duster, flying airplanes over Oklahoma farm fields. Though Jess Barker's life was cut short, he passed away at the young age of 31. He managed to achieve a proud and adventurous life as an aviator, educator, husband, and father. He later became grandfather to Holmes Park Elementary's very own Mr. Micah Barker, counselor. At this time, we would ask the family of Second Lieutenant Jess Linton Barker to come forward to acknowledge his plaque and induction into the Holmes Park Elementary Wall of Heroes. Our next inductee is Mr. Alfred Matthews of Sapulpa. Alfred Matthews was born on May 16, 1929. On March 21st, 1951, at the age of 21, Mr. Matthews was inducted into the United States Army. During his service, he became a corporal in the Armed Forces and served in the Korean War with the 3rd Division from 1951 to 1953. Mr. Matthews vividly recalls one unique Christmas during the Korean War. The warring armies called a peace treaty, which allowed soldiers to celebrate the Christmas holiday. They were also allowed to eat meals in peace and safety on that memorable Christmas day. However, the following day, the war was immediately resumed. After After the war, he served the remainder of his military career with the military police. Corporal Matthews was honorably discharged from the United States Forces on October 16, 1956. Holmes Park is proud to have his great-grandson, fifth grader Caden Mays, as part of our Holmes Park family. At this time, we'd like to recognize Korean War veteran Mr. Alfred Matthews and family as our 2019 Wall of Heroes inductee. Mr. Matthews was not able to make it today. However, his family could come up to receive those honors. Our third inductee is Mr. Clifford Edward Johnson, World War II veteran. Clifford was born June 28, 1917 in Caddo County, Oklahoma. He was born to farmers Joe Johnson and Vivian Elizabeth Booth. His father passed away, leaving behind a wife, daughter, and 3-year-old Clifford. Vivian had to sell the farm and move in with family. She never remarried. Upon completion of 9th grade, Clifford had to leave school to support the family. He did many things to earn money, including working away from home for the WPA, so he could send the money back to his mother. He married Helen Marie Johnson and had a daughter, Helen Elaine. The war had broken out in Europe, and times were hard. He took his family to Wichita, Kansas, where he worked at Boeing Aircraft. Even though he was his parents' only son and would be leaving behind a wife and child, he decided that he needed to enlist, and he did. Elaine was 4 years old at the time, and they moved back to Beggs, Oklahoma. He received his basic training and then shipped directly from the front lines in Europe as a foot soldier in private first class in the 47th Infantry. The weather was extremely cold, and he was primarily outside most of the time. He told of the beautiful countryside and his new brothers in arms. His foxhole buddy was a Pawnee Native American. He said that his comrade would never could leave and return with things he scavenged from the land to help keep the foxhole warmer and drier. He was in many battles, including the Battle of the Bulge. He was wounded just outside of Berlin. Clifford received a Purple Heart and 3 Bronze Stars for his bravery. The war was winding down at that time. He was transported to a hospital in France where he remained until he was able to be sent back to the front lines. By the time he was back to the front, preparation was being made to return home. The weather was still brutal and the ground frozen. He told of riding out on a tank with a red handkerchief across his face because of all the smoke and fire on the way out. The family still has a smoky handkerchief as a reminder of his wonderful day of departure. He returned home aboard the Queen Elizabeth. After returning home, Clifford and Helen had another daughter, Kay Lynn. He worked many years in Okmulgee for Reinhardt Jewelers. His employer encouraged him to open his own shop. So in the early 1950s, he opened Johnson's Jewelry in Okmulgee, Oklahoma, and remained there until he retired. He was a very patriotic man. He was respectful of all races and taught his children to be also. He would not tolerate bigotry. He taught respect for the flag and our country. Research on his family lineage helps others to understand the origin of Clifford's strong values and principles. Both of his parents had ancestors who served in the Revolutionary and Civil Wars. His ancestors also included some presidents and patriots. Patrick Henry was among those. Even though he never attended college, he became a ham operator, teaching himself math and Morse code. During the Vietnam War, people would go to his home to send messages to their servicemen. Just before his death at 82, He was teaching himself Spanish. He always told his children, "A day without learning something new is a day lost." Though he was a small man in nature, he was a giant among men, especially to his family. Clifford is the father of Sapulpa's own Elaine Tittle, Holmes Park Elementary substitute and former CASA local chapter president, and also the grandfather of Janet Barrett, Holmes Park Title I teacher. Accepting this posthumous award for World War II veterans, Clifford Johnson is his loving family. Please come forward and acknowledge his plaque and induct him to Holmes Park Elementary, Walden. God bless America. Our final inductee is Robert Mearns. Robert was born on December 9, 1941 in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. He served in the Royal Canadian Air Forces from 1960 to 1961 and was stationed in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. In 1962, at the age of 21, he joined the U.S. Army. Here's a fun fact about Robert. He served in the U.S. Army for over 20 years as a Canadian citizen. He later became a U.S. citizen in 1988. During his time in the Army, he served in the Vietnam War from 1967 to 1968. While serving in the Army, Robert received many medals, including the Air Medal, Bronze Star, Accommodation Medal, and Legion of Merit. He was stationed in many locations, including Texas, Minnesota, Virginia, where he worked at the Pentagon, and Germany, where he met his wife, Lisa. Incidentally, they just celebrated 55 years of marriage. Robert retired from the Army in 1984 with the rank of Sergeant Major. He began civil service in 1990 and retired in 2000. Robert and Gisela moved from Germany to Oklahoma in 2000 to enjoy their retirement. Robert is the great-grandfather, or Opa, to Ava Sweat and Jace Downs. He is also the grandfather of Tabitha Downs and grandfather-in-law to Mr. Blake Downs. At this time, we'd like to recognize Mr. Robert J. Mearns as 2019 Wall of Hero inductee. Robert, please come forward.